Hi there, welcome to our latest market update, where me and Phil get together and just sort of chew the cud generally on the market around the lovely areas that we cover in Cheshire.
Indeed, here in Cheshire, and we've come today to Debenhams in Davenham. Fantastic local cafe, you should check it out. The coffees are fantastic, so make sure you come and try it out for yourselves.
How are we finding the market currently, Phil? It's currently the day before Halloween as we speak.
It is indeed, some spooky decorations around, but also the market itself is doing well. I've been delving into some of the stats so that we can sort of provide some information for you. And compared to this time last year, we've seen a 27% increase in the amount of sales happening. So lots more sales happening this year compared to this time last year, which is interesting to see. Any particular reasons you think that might be?
Well, I think I was speaking to someone this week about interest rates, and in fact it was one of the team who's currently buying her first house, and we were saying how if you rewind the clock 2 years ago, interest rates had just started to rise massively. So at that point it was a huge change for people, and people were really worried that the market was going to crash by 40%, or these crazy figures that we heard. But fast forward 2 years, and it's just the norm. You know, interest rates are 5% now.
That's it, yeah.
You know, it's taken a while to get into people's mindsets, but that is the norm now. You know, I don't think they're ever going to fall anywhere near as low as they were previously. So I think that's maybe part of the reason. But then, of course, in August, we had that rate drop, didn't we?
Yeah, where it reached 5% as the Bank of England rate. And
yeah.
It stayed steady in the last one they had earlier this month, didn't it? So it'll be interesting to see which way it goes now. But I think generally we found a bit of a new normal. So that sort of volatility we had a couple of years ago is sort of evened out, and that's why there's more confidence in the market, and that's why we're seeing more sales at the moment than we were this time last year, where people were still sort of finding their feet with it all and things. So another thing that shows that we've reached a bit of a steady part in the market is that for the last quarter, it is, isn't it? It's the last quarter we've actually gone up in prices of 0.4% in the market. So we're on a very steady incline, and since the start of the year, that's a 2% increase. So whilst I'm not going to pretend it's super hot and everything's going rapidly and the prices are escalating massively, we are on a gentle incline again. We're going up in terms of prices, which is historically what they've done, isn't it?
Yeah, and no one really wants massive increases in property prices, because ultimately it leads to a crash. You know, we had those massive increases 2020, 21, 2022, and everyone thought there would be a crash. So as long as there's a nice steady over long-term growth, which there has been for 50, 60 years or whatever it is, then everything is fine long term, and you've got to take a long term view if you're looking to move, I would say. Exactly.
Lots of people, particularly when they're buying houses with ourselves, they're generally looking at sort of long term family homes, aren't they? It's very rare that you sell within such a short period after moving house. So actually long term, it's all heading in the right direction to give you that security that actually it's a safe and sensible move, really, to change house at the moment.
It is, yeah. One other thing about rates was that the average rate came down to 4.67%, and in July 23 this was at a high of 6.11%. So there's been that dip in mortgage rates as well recently, which I think has helped to fuel.
Definitely, it makes it more affordable for people to move, of course.
Yeah.
I guess one thing we should mention at this time of year, given, like we said, we're the day before Halloween when recording this, is that we're expecting the budget to come out, aren't we?
Yeah.
So we'll have to see what impacts those have on the market. Are you expecting anything to have a huge impact?
Stamp duty, there's talk of changes in stamp duty that will affect people quite significantly. They're talking about changing the threshold at which you have to pay stamp duty for anyone, which will cover first-time buyers as well as anyone else in the market, and also potentially higher end changes as well. So that's going to affect things. But you know, personally, I've been in the industry for quite a long time, nearly a quarter of a century, Phil.
Wow. I didn't realise you were that old, are you? Baby-faced, isn't he?
You were still in short trousers then at school?
Yeah, probably.
And throughout that time, I've seen successive governments, world events, all these major things change, and ultimately, over the long term, property prices grow, and you just have to adjust to the new norm, as we've already discussed with interest.
Of course. So we'll keep an eye on what goes on in the budget, and perhaps we'll talk about any impacts from that next time we have one of these catch-ups. But one thing we can talk about this time of year is sort of looking forward as to what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
because whilst it's been a busy quarter in terms of this time compared to this time last year, there's been more sales and the price has been going up. We are about to generally, traditionally, what is a slightly quieter period of the market, aren't we?
That's correct.
Towards sort of Christmas time.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so we always advise people at this time of year. You've probably got, 3 weeks, something like that, of reasonable selling time left before Christmas kicks in. So we say if you're not going to go on the market in the next couple of weeks, we wouldn't recommend going on in those last 3 or 4 weeks before Christmas. We would recommend launching on Boxing Day, because that's the start of the busiest week of the year on Rightmove.
It is. That period between Boxing Day and New Year has a massive spike of people looking on Rightmove at new house listings. There could be lots of different reasons for that. Maybe they've had a particularly good Christmas and they're thinking, I want more space so I can have more of my family come to visit. Or perhaps they're thinking, I've been around too many people here. I need to find somewhere else to move to, so I can be away from everybody else. But either way, Christmas seems to have an impact on people's thinking, and so that period between Boxing Day and New Year, like you say, is really busy for people looking at new listings. And so instead of that period leading up to Christmas where everybody's got their mind on other things, launching in that busy period is the way to get the most people looking. It's a bit of a bottleneck for people looking, and you want to make sure you stand out then.
Yeah, you do. That's very good advice. One thing to mention before we sort of wrap up, I think, Phil, is that currently the amount of properties that there are available for sale is at a 10-year high. So sales are up, as Phil's already mentioned. Interest rates are down. That might sound a silly thing to say when they're at 5% and they were at 0.25%, but nevertheless they are down on what they were earlier in the year, and there's predictions of a further rate fall before Christmas, which we hope happens. But ultimately there's a lot more properties on the market than there was. And what that means is you've got a lot more competition for your home. So generally speaking, you are selling in competition with other homes. You are not selling in isolation. That's most properties.
That's it. People aren't going to just look at one house on the market. They're going to look at a few different ones. There's always a short list of a few. And you need to make sure you stand out with that. So if there's so many on the market, you either need to make sure your marketing is superb, or ideally both in terms of marketing superb, but also making sure your price point is correct.
Yeah.
Making sure you're pricing correctly so that you don't get lost in the busy marketplace and nobody comes to see it, and you end up a few months down the line and needing to sort of readdress your whole strategy. So make sure you're marketing the property well and getting your price point right.
And these days we have lots of data points available to us to be able to try and help you set the correct price. And we always say at Stories, it's you and us versus the market. It's not you versus us on price. We're a team selling your home versus the market, trying to get you the best possible price in the quickest possible time. And as Phil's rightly touched on, if the marketing is correct, then it will be the price if your house isn't selling. The only other slight thing to say, that there's two things, is that it's the marketing and also the exposure. So is it marketed in the correct areas? Have you got a good social media strategy? Obviously Rightmove. Have you got a prominent for sale board up outside? Is it being pushed to buyers on the database? And the second thing I was going to say is that there is a fourth P that we talk about, which is patience. So with some homes, in particular higher end homes that may be grade 2 listed or have a unique nature to them, sometimes it just takes longer to sell.
It does.
And you have to hang in there. But certainly if you've got a fairly standard normal type home, whether it's a 4-bed detached on an estate or that kind of property, your home should sell. If the marketing is correct and the price is correct, it should sell.
If you have any other questions about how to do that, we'd love to help. Please feel free to give us a call, drop us an email, whatever may be easiest for you. And we'd love to answer any of your questions on how best to market your home, how best to achieve what you want to achieve. If that's a house move, whether you're thinking that's right now or in the future, we're here to help.
Yeah, one thing to say on that, Phil, is we're doing quite a bit at the minute helping people with estate planning.
Yes.
So people who've got large homes that are probably over $1 million and they're thinking about inheritance tax and they're doing estate planning with their financial advisors currently. So we do a lot of help with that as well. So anything to do with properties around the area, we'd love to help.
Indeed. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.